Hey everyone, welcome back to the Contractor Growth Network Podcast. I'm Logan Shinholser, and today we have on a very, very special guest. He's the author of They Ask You Answer, The Visual Sale. We have in a new book, but it's Marcus, the Sales Lion Sheridan. Marcus.
Old school. You're going OG with that one.
Yeah, that was when we first met. That was back before Impact, and that was Sales Lion. So
yeah. I don't think you had your driver's license yet, there, Logan.
No,
so,
that
was a few minutes ago.
Yeah, that was like I think that was 8 years ago, something like that. So It's been forever. So, well, Marcus, we have you back. We have a new book coming out, so that's a big part of what we're going to be talking about today. So let's go ahead, and if you're cool with it, just jump into that. You've got 2 books already. We've got a third one coming out of Endless Customers. Like, why?
Why now, right? So, it's interesting. Let me just give the quick background to everyone, because I think it's applicable to all of us. And I'll just start with this too. I'm having lots of businesses, and I've had a lot of people in the home services space that have come to me this year and said, Marcus, I'm a little bit concerned because I'm spending just as much, if not more, than I've spent on Google Ads today, and I'm getting much less results. So you're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of folks saying, I'm working with an SEO company, I'm working with an agency, but I just don't feel like I don't really even know what I'm paying for. All right. So there's a frustration that you're seeing a lot of people experience. And then, of course, you've just got this issue where Google is becoming, the reality is, because of AI and because of how people search today, Google isn't nearly as relevant as it was just a few years ago, Logan. And so you've got like a lot of disruption that's happening. And of course, we've got all these things to talk about with AI. And so I started a swimming pool company in 2001, for those that don't know me. And I was, fighting to grow it with my 2 business partners. We almost lost it in 2008. 2009 because of the crash. But it was during that time that I started to really study marketing in general and just the buyer of, just like today's buyer and how they were changing. And really what I interpreted from all the things that I was learning, Logan, was, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns, and you're willing to address those online on your website, you might save your business. So I told my 2 business partners, hey, that's what we're going to do. We're going to become the Wikipedia, if you will, of pools, the WebMD of pools. And that's what happened. We became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. And it was wild. And it just exploded the company. And it took off from there. We became a manufacturer, became a franchise. It was really, really cool. And during that time, I started to write about what we were doing. And those writings eventually became They Ask You Answer. And I started teaching companies around the world how to do this, how to implement this framework that I had done with my company, River Pools. And it worked in lots of different industries. And that was a lot of fun. And so the book came out in 2017. The second one came out in 2020. But then, of course, because of ChatGPT's release in 2022 and everything that I could see in terms of the writing on the wall, I said it's time to do just a rethought They Ask You Answer. And it can't just be about, hey, you and your website and do well with Google, because we've got to go way beyond that. And that's the reason why it's important to have this discussion right now.
So talk to us about the changes, from your perspective, because I know, like, from a marketing agency perspective, we've been on ChatGPT since day one, figuring out what it's good for, what it's not good for. So we have a lot of hands-on knowledge with this as well. But I'm curious from your side, as somebody who obsesses over the customer journey, like what have you seen progress since ChatGPT has come out at this point, 2.5 years ago?
Yeah. And the biggest takeaway from AI ChatGPT is, number one, you cannot build your house on Google, period. You can't build it on Google search, and you can't build it on Google Ads alone. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have success today with it. What it means, though, Logan, is over the course of time, it's going to greatly diminish in terms of its just general like impact. Because let's look at it right now. Let's say that you are ranked number 1 in Google search results for a particular phrase. All right. And with a lot of contractors, this is usually some geographic term or something like that. Well, if that's the case, first you're going to have to go through 4 or 5 sponsored ads that look like regular search results on that page of Google. Then you're going to have probably some AI summary. Then you're going to have related questions. Then you might have a couple of videos. And then finally, you might have your first result in search engine rankings, right? So you could literally be ranked number 1 today and have to scroll multiple times down the screen, your customers, to see you first. And so although it's still nice to be number 1, it doesn't mean nearly as much as it used to mean, right? So that's a really, really big shift that we're seeing. And because people are seeing less results from traditional search, you're seeing them spend more on Google Ads. There's greater competition with Google Ads. And I talked to a lot of, and I don't know what you all are finding, Logan, but I talked to a lot of folks in home improvement that just said, and I've talked to agencies as well that said it has been a difficult year when it comes to Google search and getting the results that we want. It doesn't mean you can't get results. And sometimes it means you can still get great results. But, I've had folks in the home improvement space that have reached out to me that were doing $200 million a year, and spending multiple millions a month on Google Ads. And they're saying, what's going on, Marcus? Can we have a conversation about this? So there's just some really, really big shifting that's happening there. 18% of all searches go to Google. 18%. That's a pretty wild number, isn't it? Not like people think 90%, because if you look around, you got a ton of people today that are going to YouTube. You got a ton of people today that are going to social media. You got a ton of people today that are going to Amazon, right? And maybe not for a contractor, but still, it's like it's being spread out. And what's happening is, as businesses, we're not spreading out in terms of the signals that we're sending to the world. It used to be, Logan, that all we had to do was please 2 parties. We had to please the customer, and we had to please Google, period. If we did that, you were going to drive leads and you were going to drive a lot of sales. But there's entered a third party, which is AI. And, when you started using AI in 2022, anybody listening to this, if you're like me, Logan, you're probably using it mainly as a creation tool, right? Oh, I can make this pretty poem. I can create this article. I can create this copy, right? And then all of a sudden we realize, okay, it's getting better. Now it's a recommendation tool. Now, instead of you necessarily going to Google and saying, who are the best, swimming pool contractors in Richmond, Virginia, now you're going to AI and you're asking that question, and you're not even clicking necessarily on a link. This era of zero click is going to affect us more and more and more as people get answers directly. More than 50% of all Google searches don't even click a link. More than 50% of all Google searches, right? And so what does this mean for businesses as a whole? For your particular company, if you're listening to this right now, the one thing that is going to be steady in a time of volatility is your brand and the need to have a known and trusted brand. Brand becomes everything. Is your brand so effective, so powerful, that if they go to social, they find about and they hear about and they learn about your brand? If they go to YouTube, they're shown your brand. If they go to Google, they're shown your brand. If they go to AI and get recommendations, your brand is mentioned. So you have to have a known and trusted brand. And that is the core payoff, the fundamental reason, Logan, that I wrote Endless Customers, is to teach people how to have a known and trusted brand.
So with some of that, so when you going back to that 18% is searches going to Google, what you're talking about is not, if you're going to go to a search engine, which is the typical ones of Google versus Bing versus Ask Jeeves, it's not 18%.
I hadn't heard that phrase in a while.
Yeah. But it's not 18% going to Google. What you're saying is everybody's searching in different ways now, where Instagram and Pinterest, those are also search engines effectively at this point.
Yeah, and if you look at most Gen Zs, they're not using Google as a search engine for the most part. I mean, it's just not really what they do, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to TikTok to learn about that thing. I'm going to go to, which to me is, I still to this day, I have never done a search on TikTok, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not relevant to my business. And see, that's the problem that a lot of contractors have, is they allow their personal opinions to screw up smart business decisions. It's like, I know, and I'm 1,000% sure that my personal opinions about TikTok and China or social media and whether it's good or bad for the world, that doesn't affect whether or not I should be using it as a business. Because as a business, it's my job to meet the buyer where they are And what we know is the buyer is expanding in terms of the areas where they are. And so if you put all your chips in one basket and say, I'm just going to be a Facebook company. Sure, if you want to be just a small time, player, which is fine, by the way, and you never want to scale your business, you never want to really probably sell it for any serious income, well, then that's probably fine. But if you want to scale and you want to sell, then you need to be across a multiplicity of channels. You need to be where your buyers are. And you can't allow your opinions on these particular platforms to prevent you from taking advantage of all the paying customers that are there.
I know there's he used to be really big, but it's still pretty big in like the search world. His name is Neil Patel, and he's essentially like, look, SEO instead of search engine optimization, it effectively now search everywhere optimization, where he went through everything of like, because overall Google is still, it's like when they go on like online and they say, or on TV, hey, Facebook is dying. In reality, they're still growing, but they're just losing market share. And that's kind of how it is with Google, where there's still more and more people are still using Google, but just as people diversify into other search engines or other platforms and things like that, it's just the market share is going down. Do you really believe,
Logan, more and more people are going to continue to use Google? Do you really believe that?
I do. I mean,
why would you believe that? I think that's crazy thoughts. Like, what is the argument that in 5 years, as everybody learns, you know what, I can do way better using an AI search engine than I can do Google and I can get an immediate answer. I have no ads to worry about, and I can do much better, deeper research that is not skewed by sponsored at all. Why in the world would we continue to use Google if we had that option? And I'm not trying to pick on you, but I think this is a really critical conversation here, because I've heard a lot of SEOs that have said, search companies that just do SEO and that's all they do, have come out and said, you know what, this isn't going to affect SEO at all. This isn't going to affect SEOs. This isn't going to affect your traffic. I'm like, what planet are you living on? I'm not saying that to you, by the way.
No, I'm good. No, I welcome this conversation, because part of this is, let's just take ChatGPT for example. Right now, a lot of ChatGPT, they're pulling off Bing because it's Microsoft and stuff like that. So like, to get found in ChatGPT, like, you have to be set up online because it still needs to pull all this information in. So if it does shift, where in 5 years, to me, like, I do think that we are eventually going to be at like in the movie Her, where it's like you have your little like lapel microphone that can do everything together. But I think in 5 years, I think you still have, user behaviors.
But you're not making an argument right now as to why Google will continue to grow.
I think it's the user behavior.
That is not, and what you just stated is not an argument for it to grow. What you just stated is an argument for us to continue to evolve the way we get answers, because ultimately everything that's happened in search over the course of 30 years, which is roughly how long we've been in the search game, is about how can I get, or in this case, in the case of the search engines or the AI or whatever it is, how can I give them the best, most specific, relevant answer to their question as quickly as possible? The only company that's going away from that is Google. Think about it. Because Google is saying, all right, I'm going to give you my AI summary, but at the same time, I'm going to show you these 5 sponsored searches that I eliminated from the right side of the page because you could tell they were sponsored searches. Now I'm going to put it on the first fundamental portion of our search results. I'm going to show you a bunch. I'm going to make them look real, which to me is pretty nefarious in and of itself, because they're accepting the fact that, hey, you know what? We know our search game could be a problem. This is the biggest portion of our business, like $30-some billion a year. And so we're going to make sure that we are taking full advantage of showing this in such a way that people don't even know that it's a sponsored search, even though they're required by law to say that it's a sponsored search. Still, they're showing it in such a way that you can barely tell. Now, they're the only platform, if you really look at it, that is going in that direction.
Look, Google is such a big player in this space. There's no way that they say, you know what, we're just going to die. Like, they're going to shift. They're going to update with how they do things. So
Logan,
yes.
How come they didn't move on AI until ChatGPT, for the first time in over a decade, ChatGPT comes out and suddenly you're having Google that's having boardroom meetings at midnight saying, okay, we've got to react. Now, Google's answer, of course, is we weren't going to put AI out there until we felt like it was responsible, until we felt like it wasn't dangerous. But the reality is they fell behind for the first time because whenever, and this happens in all businesses, it's called the pride cycle. What happens is when you're on the top of an industry, you generally stop innovating. And the reason why you stop innovating is because you're trying to protect a previous business model. So if you look at how does like a Kodak, which literally invented digital film print, how did they completely lose their brand, their business? Because they were protecting their regular print business. How did BlackBerry fall? How did, Ford fall with the Model T? Everybody celebrates the quote, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. That's a terrible quote. That's the thing that got Henry Ford in trouble because he said, I don't want to evolve with the marketplace. And so Google, knowing that this was happening, they still said, we are going to protect our current business model. And even though they're giving you AI answers today, they're still coming from a place of, we just make too much money with search and we need to ride this as long as we can. But I think for us, Logan, to say from a user experience perspective and from a competitive perspective that's happening in the market, for us to say that Google is going to continue to grow, I just don't think it's a very realistic thing. A healthy conversation no matter what, because a good debate like this is what people need to hear. And the fact of the matter is we could both be wrong.
Yeah, I don't see Google going out like Blockbuster where it's, Netflix has been doing streaming for forever. And then Blockbuster all of a sudden says, let's try streaming. And I think Google is just...
We agree on that. Would you agree though that you shouldn't build your house on Google alone?
Oh, 100%. You need to be, and Google even says that now where it's like when it pulls in like reviews, when you go to like a Google business profile, like it's going to show reviews from Google, but also Yelp and also Facebook and also, so like to diversify 100% because ultimately that's also what, let's just say in this utopia world that Google is of now they are back, big dogs in 5 years, they still need to pull from all these other platforms to make sure that they're able to give you the best answer. So I'm with you on we can't build it only on Google. The same way that we can't only build it on TikTok or Meta or any of this other stuff. So
one thing I'll make a
SEO
prediction for you that you might laugh at. I think within 7 years, YouTube will be, which is owned by Google, of course. I think YouTube will be the most profitable wing of Google unless they come out with some AI tech that we just don't yet know about. And I think Google eventually is going to be an AI company and a video-based company, not so much a text-based search company in the future. It's not. I don't think that's going to carry them over the course of the next decade. Time will tell. I think it's all of it's pretty interesting, but it doesn't. None of it. Of course, all of this doesn't change the fact that as businesses we can't continue to market the way we've marketed over the course of the last 30 years and expect to get extraordinary results. And we have to start doing things differently. And that's really like my core message with endless customers is, we got to be different and we got to lean into disruption and we got to be willing to break rules. And we can't come from that fat and happy place, and be like the Kodaks and be like the BlackBerries.
So on paper, we got to diversify everywhere, which we're on the same page for. But the amount of effort and energy and where do we allocate resources and stuff like that? Now it comes into like the behaviors of the business owner or the marketing department or what that looks like. So talk to me a bit about that of where should we be spending our time in your opinion?
Well, let's come from a first principles perspective here. I think principles is what's key. And once you understand the principle, then you can say, all right, well, how do we apply that to our business? So in the book Endless Customers, I make an argument and try to essentially give a system. That's what it is. It's really a system, kind of like EOS is a system. This is a system to become the most known and trusted brand in your market. Now, there's 4 pillars to that. First pillar is you have to be willing to say what others in your space aren't willing to say online. Okay? A lot of folks think they do. They don't if they're being very honest. Like, what are you talking about today online that your competitors just aren't talking about? And we can discuss each one of these pretty quickly if you want. Number 2, you got to be willing to show with video what others in your space aren't willing to show. Okay? So you got to be willing to say what others aren't willing to say, show what others aren't willing to show. Number 3, you need to be willing to sell in a way others aren't willing to sell. This one's really important. A lot of folks, especially in home improvement, fundamentally sell the same way for the most part. And then finally, number 4, you've got to be willing to be more human than others in your space are willing to be. Of course, there's a bunch of different ways that you can do that today. So say, show, sell, and be more human. Now, if you're listening to this right now, and if I said to you, I want you to be really honest here and self-aware, are you doing these 4 things better and more consistently than 95% of your competitors? And most people are going to say, no, I'm not.
So let's just go through one by one.
Yep.
Willing to say what others aren't willing to say.
Yep.
Give me an example of that.
Yeah. So let me just give you a really funny example from a group of attorneys I met with the other week, and then I'll talk about home improvement for a second. So the other week I was doing a mastermind with a bunch of personal injury attorneys, and I said to them, two most common questions that you hear in personal injury when somebody has something that's happened to them, personal injury, and they know that they probably need to go to court for it. Number 1 is, what's my case worth? That's number 1. Number 2 is, what happens if I lose my case? And I looked at this room, and it was like 25 folks in the mastermind. These are some of the top personal injury attorneys out there, and but a lot of them are struggling with their marketing right now. They're concerned. Okay, they're losing. They're seeing that times are changing. I said, how many of you in this room address even one of those 2 questions? Nobody raised their hand, Logan. Nobody raised their hand. Yet those are the 2 most fundamental questions that people have when they've sustained an injury. It's wild. All right. Now, and they ask you answer. And of course, in Endless Customers, we continue to talk about the 5 fundamental subjects that every buyer wants to know, but businesses don't want to talk about. And this is prolific in home improvement. I mean, absolutely prolific. What are these subjects? Number 1, buyers want to know roughly how much is it going to cost. Everybody wants to understand that better. Most people don't want to talk about that until they get in the home. Massive mistake. We could talk about that. Number 2, homeowners are very afraid of what could go wrong. In other words, what are the drawbacks, the issues, the negatives? And every single thing that we do, that we sell, has a potential, other side of the coin that has a negative. Oftentimes, we don't want to talk about that. Number 3, comparisons. As buyers, consumers, we constantly compare stuff. But most businesses don't want to compare anything online, like product versus product, company versus company, method versus method, brand versus brand. Number 4, reviews. The thing about reviews is we don't just want the good reviews. We want the good, the bad, and the ugly reviews. But oftentimes, businesses don't want to talk about the ugly side of things. And then finally, number 5, best. Best, most, top. We're constantly searching those types of phrases. Once again, you don't see businesses talking about them. So you got cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, best. Those are the big 5 that runs the economy of search, whether it's AI, whether it's Google, whether it's social. And yet most businesses don't want to talk about those things. And so they're like the ostrich with their head in the sand, and they're not addressing them, which is a huge, massive mistake. And I know already there's people listening to this, they're saying, but you don't understand, Marcus. There's no way we could talk about cost and price. There's no way we could do that. And of course, we could go down the list as to all the reasons why you can and why you should. And I've got the data to prove it. But yeah, there's a lot of resistance to this because everybody thinks their business is different, when in reality, we're all in the same business for the most part, really. It's just the business of trust and who can get more of it.
So those 5, I mean, that's the they ask you answer core principles.
That's the way.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Yep.
So then that's say the next one was this the show one?
Yeah. You need to be willing to show what others aren't willing to show. All right. Specifically through video. So let me give you an example. In the book, I talk about what's called the selling 7. These are the 7 types of videos that have the greatest impact on the sales process. One video that every single contractor should produce. And by the way, there's different levels of this, and we'll talk about there's this good, better, best way to do it, and going right back to the same well that we were just at. One of the most important videos you can produce as a contractor is a cost price video. You should take every major service that you offer as a contractor, whether it's a new roof, and if you do commercial, you do commercial. If you do residential, you do residential. If it's new windows, new doors, or separate questions, separate videos. These videos should be anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes long. They're not short videos. These are longer form videos where you really do a deep dive into explaining what drives cost up for a particular product or service, what drives cost down, why are some companies more expensive, why are some companies less expensive, and roughly what are you going to spend? That's one of the most powerful videos you can create. All right. Most contractors don't know. And what percentage of contractors do you think have that type of video already either on their website, on social, on their YouTube? How many? What percentage, Logan, if you had to make a guess?
0.1.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost none. And that's when you go on a buyer's journey. Okay. When somebody says, I need new windows, I need new doors, I need a new roof. Okay. I need an addition, whatever it is. I need a swimming pool. I need landscaping. It's all the same thing. first literal question that the person has once they know they have a problem and a need. Do you know what it is, Logan?
What is it?
Take a guess. Just take a guess. Just think about yourself.
What's the cost, or is this even possible?
First one is, can I even afford this? Am I in the game? Roughly, what is this going to set me back? You see, there's all these different ways we think it. That's the number one question. And so buyer's journey starts with that question. Until that question is alleviated, many people can't move forward, Logan. And so what happens is you get that answer to that question. You get a range, a sense, you get a feel for it, and you're like, okay, I'm in the game. Now you continue your research, and you continue until you decide on a company or companies to talk to. Then you talk to a salesperson. And then at the end of that process, there's the same question. Now, though, it's evolved with one word. Now it's exactly, how much is this going to cost? The first question that starts the buyer journey is roughly, how much is this going to cost? The last question is exactly, what is this going to cost? That's the buyer's journey. And the massive mistake that we make is that we don't address it on the front end. The problem is, whenever you're talking about money, people think you got to give exact prices. And that is not true. And that is not how it works. You know how many contractors have received a phone call or been in a conversation, Logan, and been asked before, I'm not going to hold you to it, but could you give me a sense for how much this might cost? That is like 100% of every contractor in the world. 100%. And yet, the majority of them do not talk about that at all until they're pitching someone or they're trying to justify their prices to someone. And by that point, you have no concept as to how many you've lost. So that's an example of a video that you should have on your website. Another example, let me give you one, is a landing page video. So a landing page is any page of your site that has a form that somebody can fill out, right? So the problem with forms is that people have natural fears. And there's 4 major fears that people have when thinking about filling out a contact form or any other form on your website. And the fears are, number 1, are you going to spam me to death? Number 2, you're going to call me to death. Number 3, what are you going to do with my information? Number 4 is, so if I fill out this form, exactly what's going to happen. So here's what the smart companies do. They take that, contact us form or any other form on their website. They put a video next to it. The video has a clear title that you can see on the screen. The title of that video is, see exactly what will happen if you fill out this form. Because that's what the person's thinking. And then in the video itself, you literally say something like this, Logan. So you're sitting there right now and you're saying to yourself, all right, should I fill out this form? Are these guys going to spam me to death, email me to death? Like, what's going to happen if I fill out this form? Relax. We're going to explain that to you right now. Right? So that's an example of a landing page video. We've seen those generally increase conversions by roughly 80%. Okay. So you're going to, almost double the amount of conversions you get on that form if you overcome the fears that people have. One last type of video that I would recommend to you is claims we make videos. So every company makes claims. So like, we're the best this, we're the most that, we got the best people, we got the best process. Okay, that's sure, fine, whatever. So if you make a claim, I have a simple ask, and that is this. Have you proven the claim to be true with video? Have you proven it to be true with video? You say you got the best people. Okay, fine. Everybody says that. Have you proven it to be true with video? So that's just 3 examples, very quick examples of the Selling 7. And then there's a lot of other videos that, I could suggest, but you got to be willing to show what others aren't willing to show. And it's not just with video. Part of it is what comes with the next pillar, which is selling.
So on the video side, what if you suck on video?
That's not true, Logan. Because if I ask anybody that is if I talk to anybody's listening to this right now, and I said to them, are you pretty good with customers? 99% are going to say yes. So it's impossible for you to be good with customers and not potentially good on camera. Because when you're on camera, of course, who you're talking to? Well, you're talking to the customer. And so if you're good at talking to customers, you just haven't learned the skill of video. Video, like anything else, is a skill. And the problem is you see a lot of people, and this is where opinions screw up smart business decisions, Logan, right? Because somebody says, I'm just not good on video. Or they say, video's not my thing. Or they say, I don't really do video, so why would we do video? Or they make the really false claim, which is, our customers aren't watching video. Okay? My great grandmother's watching video and she's dead. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is how video works today. And so, has anybody ever come to your website, if you're listening to this right now, and said, boy, I wish I could see a video on this, but it's not here. That's okay though, because these guys are just probably too nervous to be on camera. Like, nobody has ever said that. What they've said is, can't find it, I'm gone. And I'm going to go to the place where I can find it. And so video is one of those standards of the industry. At this point, home services is a video first industry. And I would even argue it could happen. And I'm not going to like stake my, like professional existence on this, Logan. It wouldn't surprise me within 7 years that your YouTube page was more important than your web page.
Right now, you combine them. I mean, that's effectively what we do with people is hey, you got videos, let's put them together because it's, even though this dying thing of Google is, still right now working, but like you put video at the top of a page, Google's going to look at it, they're going to index it, they're going to show it.
You should absolutely do that.
It's 100% the present right now too. So I agree with that one because it's very much, I mean, the TikTok world has gotten us so pro video that we're used to it and we want to find video. We want to see what's going on and stuff like that. So let me ask you this. So right now, I mean, one of the things you're talking about in this cost video is 5 to 15 minutes long, but the world there is a bit of a backlash now where people are starting to want more longer form video. And it's funny that 5 minutes is a long form video when you think about I think the movie Titanic was like 3.5 hours long and that was long form. But because of the TikTokification of everything, I mean, now it's like 60 seconds feels like forever. So why make a cost video that's 5 to 15 versus make 10 videos that are a minute each?
Because when you're getting ready the length of the video most correlates with where the person is in their buyer's journey. Okay. So if I am just thinking right now about replacing the windows on my home, I might want to, read a couple short articles or watch a couple short form videos about the topic just to get my brain flowing. But as soon as I get really serious, and as soon as I say, I'm going to have to write a check for this, then I get much more engaged in the content consumption game, right? And so if a person knows that you're coming out to their house tomorrow to meet with them, and they might be writing you a check, they are more than willing to not make the mistake of missing that video. They don't want to make mistakes, right? Because this is a one-shot deal. People value their home so much because they are like, I got to live with this for the rest of my time in this home. They don't want to screw it up. And so the amount of time somebody will spend consuming content correlates directly with A, where they're on the buyer's journey, and then B, the value they put to the service or the product itself, right? And so that's why too, it's not always how much does it cost is the big factor. That's like the third factor actually, right? Right? Because it's more about, I don't want to make a mistake here. That is a huge, huge deal.
Okay, so that flips us into sell how others won't sell. What does that mean?
Yeah. So a lot of people think of the sales process really as just starting when you're walking up the driveway or when you call them the first time. But you have to do so much more today. Let me give you a stat, Logan, that's quite powerful and that scares people, but it should actually make you excited. 75% of all buyers say they would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. I'll repeat, 75% of all buyers say they would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. And so when you look at that, you're like, okay, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean that we hate salespeople. It just means that we don't want to engage with a salesperson until we are confident, we are comfortable, and we feel like we're not going to make a mistake. That's what dictates like, hey, I am ready to do this. So what this means is buyers want more control. How do you give them more control? The most fundamental way to give them more control is through what's called self-service. Now, self-service is the process of having interactive tools on your website that allow people to essentially answer questions, and then they get answers based on those questions or the inputs that they have. So key phrase being interactive, which means that their investment level in the thing and in the output is greater. So there's 5 of these. I'll explain them very quickly. Each one is in the book, and these are going to have massive impact. I mean, massive impact on home improvement going forward. Okay. So the first one would be a self-assessment tool. Self-assessment tools basically give someone like a score or a grade, essentially. So let's say that your windows are getting old, and you're like saying, should I replace my windows? So you could have a tool on your website that essentially is an assessment that's like, here's the current grade of your windows, and this is what that grade means. Like, hey, you're probably going to have to replace these within the next 3 years. It's costing you this much in terms of your energy bills, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's an example of an assessment in this context. Okay, they're very, very powerful. They work well. They work extremely well with home improvement. The tool that I like the most for that, and you might have ones that you like for that, Logan, but there's one called Score App that I think is quite good, and I'm a big fan of that one. It's very inexpensive, and you can easily add these assessments to your website. Okay, lickety split. So that's number one. Number two, we call them self-selection tools. Essentially, these are recommendation tools. So to give you an example, if you go to the River Pools website right now, one thing that I want you to know before we meet together is, well, I don't want you asking me, Marcus, tell me why I should choose why I should choose fiberglass over concrete, or why I should choose fiberglass over a vinyl liner and ground pool. So when people ask that question in the sales appointment, it means they're generally not very close to being ready. So that's one we want to get out of the way. So we've got an interactive tool on our site that allows someone in an unbiased way to get a recommendation on what type of pool is the most ideal type of pool for their needs. Every single day, Logan, that tool recommends to people that they buy a pool that we do not sell. Now, how many people do you know in home improvement have a tool on their website that literally recommends that they buy from a competitor?
It's probably back to that 0.1%.
0.1%. You see, you got to be willing to sell in a way that others aren't willing to sell. Now, I'm not going to convert the person, that is saying, no matter what, I want the cheapest pool possible and I want to spend less than $50,000 on an in-ground pool. They're going to have to get a vinyl liner. That's period. They're not going to get a fiberglass pool from anybody on earth, and they're not going to get a concrete pool from anybody on earth. You see what I'm saying? So that's self-selection. Recommendation tools rock and roll. They are so powerful. They're so effective. Okay, let me give you another one. Number 3, which is a self-configuration tool. So a configurator essentially allows someone to build the thing or design the thing. Now, this has always been relevant to home improvement, but to give you an example, I've got a pretty massive 4-bay shop next to my house right now. It's 45 by 70 feet. Okay, so it's a pretty substantial shop. I literally went to a few different websites, and there's this one garage website that was out of state in North Carolina that allowed me with a 3D image to build this shop very easily on my own. I could place the windows, I could do the colors, I could just do the whole thing. It was simple, it was easy, I enjoy the process. And because I was the one that designed it, Logan, what happens, I'm more invested in it. And who did I buy from? The one who allowed me to actually build it. And so out of state, I get this company that comes in and builds this massive shit. Okay, wonderful. That's great. Self-configurator tools, they're the future. Most aren't doing them well. Okay, number 4 is self-scheduling tools. Now, a self-scheduling tool is when you can, through just an interactive tool, you can schedule time with a salesperson. But here's where it gets wild, Logan. And I know a lot of your listeners don't necessarily have a big sales team, but here's what's crazy. I've done this multiple times now with different clients, and that is this. When you create the tool that allows them to schedule time with a salesperson and choose which salesperson they work with. In other words, imagine this, Logan. Let's say you want to hire a realtor, okay? And you go to a realtor firm, and there's 7 realtors on the screen, and you see their images, you see a video about them where they're talking to you, you see their entire bio, right? Maybe they got some other links there, and you can choose your realtor. Would you prefer that, or would you prefer to be given a realtor? It's like, of course, you want to make the choice, choose your own adventure. And so what we have found, every time someone can choose their own salesperson, the closing rates double. I mean, every single time, which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? But how many people in the home improvement space, how many companies have multiple salespeople? How many of them allow the prospect to choose which salesperson they work with? 0. Doesn't exist right now in home improvement. Okay, I'm going to change that. And then finally, number 5. This is the most important one for home improvement. You're starting to see it, and I'm sure you're starting to play with this a little bit, Logan, which is self-pricing tools and pricing calculators. This is the future of service-based businesses. I can tell you right now, folks, that within the next 5 years, 90% of home services businesses will have some type of self-pricing tool on their website. Now, I call this an estimator. And knowing that this is such a mega trend, I actually have a ton of data on this because I started a software company last year that does exactly this. And what it does is it allows anyone, but the specialty is home improvement, allows anyone to build a pricing estimator for their website in 30 minutes or less for roughly $200 a year. Okay. Now, it uses AI to help you build the tool. You can modify all the text and you can modify any of the number variables. So you're essentially setting the scale. The goal here, Logan, isn't to give someone an exact price or a quote. I'm not suggesting that because that could put you in a corner. What won't put you in a corner, but will give you a ton of leads and a ton more trust and goodwill with the prospect, is that you give them a range. And so River Pools was the first manufacturer in the world of fiberglass swimming pools to have a build and price your swimming pool tool on our website. During the summer, that single tool gets 1 to 200 leads a day, Logan. A day, right? It's phenomenal. Now, since I came out with Price Guide, I've had home services businesses putting Price Guide on their website all over the world. All right. I mean, I've now got hundreds of clients on it. And here's what we see over and over again. This is what's so cool. When someone puts a pricing estimator on their homepage and they have a very clear, visible call to action, which is get instant estimate. That's the 3 words. Get instant estimate. Very clear above the fold. You will see leads increase by 300% almost every single time. So if you're getting 3 leads a week on your website right now, if you add a pricing estimator, you're going to get 9 leads a week. And that's amazing. You know what's really wild, Logan? Most people listening to this won't do it. And also, one thing about this too, just giving someone a quick number because you have a Google Earth image and it measures square footage and it says, hey, this is how much it is. That is actually not a powerful, as nearly as powerful experience as if you ask them a series of questions, they answer because there's more interactivity, there's more of a personal investment there, and then they get a range. That is more effective. And it's just amazing how powerful this is. Again, this is going to be table stakes for home improvement. What percentage of home improvement companies right now, if you had to guess, Logan, have a pricing estimator on their website?
Ooh, I would say probably even less than 0.1.
Yeah, and you see a few roofers with Roofle and stuff, but like it is like extremely, extremely small. And I'm telling you what, that's why I created this tool, and it's like blowing up. And I'm having agencies sign up now, all of their clients on it, because biggest key for an agency is my clients need leads, right? So this is the quickest way you can get leads at the most cost-effective price. Like in 2025, this is the quickest way to do it.
Are you seeing this? So with a lot of these costs, like Roofle, I mean, it's roofing. It's usually just like a math equation associated with what it's going to cost. Take a more custom option where you're looking at like home additions or custom home building, things like that. How does this tool work for something that there's all these different options?
Yeah. I want everybody to listen to me here, okay? And I really want you to put yourself in the position of if somebody came up to you on the street or if it was a friend at the coffee shop and said, hey, I'm looking at getting an addition to my house. Could we have a conversation for a second? And you just give me a sense for what I might spend. Any contractor would be able to say in that moment, Logan, sure. And they're going to ask a series of questions. First one, it's going to have to do with size, and then you're going to have, generally types of maybe like design or materials, number of rooms, just things like that. I mean, these are all the things that we're going to ask, right? So there's a series of questions you're going to ask. All those questions are the same questions that go in your estimator. And you can design them. And then you can put a number range that is related to each. And so what makes this so powerful is, if somebody says after they answer like 10, 12 questions, if they get like, I want to redo my kitchen. And the answer is based on what you just said, you're going to spend somewhere between $70,000 and $110,000. Okay. They're thinking that was so helpful. They're not thinking, geez, $40,000. That's no help. They're like, whew, thank you. because you are willing to give me more than anybody else was willing to give me, you're going to get a call. You're going to get a call. And again, I got so much data on this, Logan, at this point, because I own a software company that does this. It's extraordinary, man. And the thing is, there's two ways you can do it. You can build a custom type of estimator, but you're probably going to spend $15,000 to $25,000, right? If you like get somebody to just build this out for you. I did that with River Pools. I spent like $25,000, a few years ago. This is one of the reasons why I said AI's got to be able to do this faster, quicker, and I want to make this affordable for anybody that's in home services. And it's just taken off since then. Like I said, I just can't stress this enough. This is going to be 90% of your competitors are going to have it. And what's sad is when your competitor gets it and suddenly like, oh man, I better do that too, because you're losing out on market share at that point.
So, okay, so we have sell like others won't sell. And what's the last and final?
Yeah, be more human
staple
than others are willing to be. Okay. So, all the things that we've talked about up to this point to a degree lend itself to that. But the bottom line is there should be a face behind the brand. Okay. Because your face and your personal brand is always going to be more powerful than your company brand. If you look at some of the biggest brands in the world, oftentimes there's a person that that is really the core influencer there behind that brand, right? If you look at the Kardashians, most of the people listening to this right now could name the Kardashians, but they can't name their companies. You see what I'm saying? But their companies are billion-dollar companies. It's just how it works, right? What's bigger, the Elon Musk brand or the Tesla brand? Well, Elon Musk's brand is bigger than Tesla's, right? Whether you like them or not, it's not important. It's the same thing, right? So, we've heard forever that people buy from those they know, like, and trust. That's never going to change. That's a principle of truth. So what are you doing to make yourself feel so personal that people say, you know what? I felt like I knew you before I ever even shook your hand. We say the same thing to our salespeople. If our salespeople, if the prospect doesn't feel like I've seen this person, I've heard this person's voice, and I've learned from this person before they walk up my driveway, then you have failed the prospect. This is why when we get a lead and it's assigned to a salesperson, that salesperson immediately sends a one-to-one video that introduces themselves to the prospect. So now the prospect sees a person that is excited to talk to them. The relationship has already started. How many contractors do you know are, when they get a lead, immediately sending a one-to-one video introducing themselves? It's probably 1 or 2%. That's not okay, because you can create these incredible human connections and stand out. And then we wonder, like, why are my margins slower? Or why is my brand not growing? Or why am I having a harder time closing deals? It always goes back to trust and being known. And that's why if you follow those 4 pillars, Logan, and of course, I talk a lot more about these in the book. I mean, one other one, I just got to say it really quick for home contractors, just huge. One of the most important things that you can do right now this year is follow the 5-minute rule with all leads. Your goal should be that you reach out to all leads that reach out to you within 5 minutes. If you reach out within 5 minutes, the chances that you have a conversation with the lead go up 900% versus if you waited 30 minutes. Right? But if you talk to most contractors and you say, how long does it take you to get back to a lead if they filled out a form on your website? It's oftentimes next day. Completely unacceptable, and it's just killing you. Just to give you an example of this, we switched to the 5-minute rule after earlier this year. I was looking at all the leads we got in January and February for just my company in Virginia. And we got 199 leads, Logan. Out of 199, we only talked to about 78 of them. So we got roughly a 40% conversation rate with all the people that said, I want to have a conversation. That's terrible, Logan. And so that number needs to be between 60 and 70% at least. And so the way that you can solve that problem is the 5-minute rule with all leads. We're actually integrating AI phone calls so that even if you reach out to us 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, you're going to get an immediate phone call from an AI. It's going to have a regular conversation with you. It actually feels and sounds very real. The person's going to say, hey, this is an AI assistant. I'm just calling you because you filled out a form just now, and this is really important to us, and we wanted to set up a time for you to chat with one of our salespeople. Can we go ahead and do that really quick? And so now we're able to do the immediate 5-minute rule every single time, no matter what, weekends, weeknights, doesn't matter.
So how does that work if the principle is be more human, but then the first thing that they get is an AI voice calling them up?
Yeah. So you say AI voice is less human. If what human means is you want to have a great experience. That's what that means. You want to feel good and you want to feel trust. So have you ever reached out to a company and gotten a call within 60 seconds before, Logan?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's extremely rare. Okay. When it happens, I've had it happen like twice. I'm like, baller. That's amazing. It's no different than, let me give you another example of this. And I talk about it in the book. I know this is right now, a lot of people would think this is in the clouds, but it's just, things are happening fast. So you're people that are listening to this, like your brain has to think faster as well. So by the end of this year with River Pools, you're going to come to the website as a visitor. And in the bottom right, instead of having a chat box, you're going to have an actual person that you see on video. It's going to be a digital avatar that looks like one of our team members. That person's going to say to you, "Hi, welcome to River Pools." And let's say it looked like me. "Welcome to River Pools. I'm Digital Marcus. I'm not the real Marcus, but I'm using his brain and all the content he's ever produced about swimming pools to answer any of your questions right now." Now, here's what we can do. You can ask a question with text on the screen, or you can ask a question with audio, and I'll walk you through anything. Or if you would like, I could even give you a real-time estimate right now. Which would you prefer? Now, if someone is watching, like having an interactive conversation with my avatar, who literally looks just like me, who sounds exactly like me, or they're just reading text-based words on a website, which one is more human-to-human experience, Logan?
Yeah, I mean the video, the interactive video for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I already know you. That's always the goal. I feel like I already know you. But in conjunction with that, speed to lead is just a massive fundamental human need. We're very impatient. And so we've got to meet the buyers where they are. Buyers want speed, yes. Buyers want human, yes. How can we merge all of these things together?
Are you not concerned with that interactive, like digital Marcus where, because like if words are on the website, you know, the natural assumption is that, okay, maybe Marcus wrote this himself, so I know that to be a fact, versus digital Marcus is saying he has Marcus's brain, but maybe there's a mistake. Maybe there's some discrepancy in what they're saying. So I guess how do you, maybe I'm the only one to think of that, but like how do you then potentially mitigate against that?
Well, this all comes down to how well you train in this case, the AI, and your ability to train comes down to the content you train it with. So if you're saying, I want you to use all this other information that's out there that I didn't produce, well, then it could lead astray. But if it's using the information that you produced, then it's going to be a really good experience. By the end of this year, I'm also going to have a digital Marcus just for the world to use for any sales and marketing advice for free. That's my goal. That the way anybody can talk to me face to face at any point in time, and I can answer their questions, and it doesn't cost them a thing. I think that's going to be pretty much normal. I think a lot of CEOs of home improvement companies are eventually going to give people the ability to do the exact same thing at any time of the day and just have a conversation about their needs. And again, this for a lot of people right now, this sounds crazy, but there's going to be so many things that happen within the next couple of years. And you're like, well, I just can't believe this is happening right now. But you can't have these incredible AI experiences if you're not producing your own content. Because if you're not producing your own content, then there's no doctrine, there's no gospel according to you by which you can train the AI. That's problematic, right? Which is why it goes back to the need to follow those principles that were in They Ask You Answer, of course, now Endless Customers.
Yeah, I joke with my wife that she said if anything happens to her, she wants me to remarry and find a good mom for our kids. And I told her that if anything happens to me, I want her to take all my podcasts and YouTube videos and upload it and create a whole AI off of it. Which she's like, "You don't want me to remarry?" I was like, "If you have the AI, like,
why?
Good.
Why would you?
Yeah.
You're good."
Yeah, I was like, "You've got thousands of hours of content.
I can keep interviewing people. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So, so tell me, when does the book come out? Because I know we're recording this at the end of March. So
book comes
when
out,
can we see it?
Book comes out mid-April. So it's just ready to. She's ready to pop right now. It's final trimester.
Okay. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well,
so if you're listening to this, go to endlesscustomers.com and you can get the book. You get a bunch of freebies with it. So it's endlesscustomers.com. Make sure you check out Price Guide too. That's going to be a big game changer for you. That's priceguide.ai. And also connect with me on LinkedIn. But the most important thing is, get the book and just open yourself up to the possibilities, gang. I know it's different, but different is oftentimes better than better, as Sally Hogshead says. So make sure that you lean into it.
Awesome. Marcus, thank you. Everybody, we'll put the link in the show notes, but it's a pretty simple name to remember. So Marcus, this was fun, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Cool.